Global temperatures are increasing rapidly, estimated 2 degrees Celsius higher since 1850, primarily due to fossil fuel emissions. In response, carbon markets have been created, divided into compliance and voluntary types. Here's how they work. Compliance, also known as cap and trade markets, are where governments set emission limits and issue permits allowing companies to emit a set amount of CO2. These permits can be traded, creating a market. Voluntary markets are where companies offset emissions by funding green projects without government mandates. By pricing carbon, these markets incentivize emission reductions and promote greener alternatives. In order to create an impactful carbon market, countries should consider many factors. First, they should consider the level of mitigation ambition, where higher levels of mitigation ambition will drive up participation in these markets. Second are the factors that go into the design of the markets themselves, like economic and environmental factors and what units can be created. These can be applied to both developed and developing countries, but developed countries should also consider modern advancements, such as green technologies, GIS data, and more. Now, it is important to consider inherent difficulties when implementing carbon markets. There are measuring, reporting, and verification challenges in both voluntary and involuntary markets. In involuntary markets, leakage is a big issue, where a company might move production from a country with strict regulations to one with less strict regulations. Additionally, pricing is tentative in these markets. They cannot be too high or too little. If they're too little, then the impact will simply not be great enough. In voluntary markets, utilizing carbon offsets are often an issue, as there are many integrity issues when handling them. According to The Guardian, 90% of carbon offsets are inherently worthless, meaning they don't represent carbon emission and reduction. These miscalculations can be due to double counting, where two countries might count the same offset as reducing emissions. Ultimately, this shows that there are pros and cons to carbon markets, and they can help development by helping us look to greener alternatives and thus accelerating these green technologies, ultimately reducing emissions. It can diminish development by giving us a false sense of security through misinformation and miscalculations, thus increasing them. Ultimately, if these inherent difficulties are reconsidered and long-term solutions are reflected through the markets, then the USA should utilize them, as they can be a preventative measure against global warming and reduce emissions as they are designed to do.